ahead. A brief hot spell this time though, gradually turning cooler towards the end of the week. And for this evening, we've still got a north-south split in the weather. Low pressure dominating northern areas, but high pressure holding on to the south. So mostly dry with clear skies for much of England and Wales, but the low pressure still continues to bring in more cloud and some spells of rain across much of Scotland and at times Northern Ireland and northwest England. For although it is set to be a very warm, if not quite muggy night across parts of the south, where temperatures aren't going to drop much past between 17 to 19 degrees, so a little bit uncomfortable for sleeping in through this evening. Then on Wednesday, there will be some spells of rain to start, this turning heavy as it crosses over hills, but a little bit brighter towards the far north of Scotland, though still some showers pushing through. Still some rain affecting parts of Northern Ireland, southern Scotland and northwest England, and perhaps a bit more cloud around Wales to start compared to recent mornings. But otherwise, you can see it's a very warm and bright start across much of England and Wales, and temperatures are going to be pushing up through the course of the day, a hotter day into tomorrow compared to what we've seen this afternoon. And there'll still be a fair amount of cloud, this thick enough to produce some spells of rain still across much of the northwest and turning a little heavy at times. But for most, particularly across central and southern England and Wales, intense sunshine, high UV levels and temperatures pushing up into the mid-30s, so a very hot day here. On Thursday though, the temperatures will start to come down. There will be some cloud and perhaps the odd shower, very hit and miss across England and Wales. Longer spells of at times quite heavy rain pushing into Northern Ireland and parts of Scotland. So we remain in that north-south split, and we remain that way for the rest of the week. Temperatures will be coming down though, but still feeling warm in the sunshine.
Expect warm spells with the odd rude interruption. Boxed Boilers sponsors the weather on GB News.
It's the Great British Giveaway Golden Summer Celebration. Your chance to win 2 fantastic prizes. There's an incredible £60,000 in tax-free cash. Plus, you'll also get your hands on a fine gold bar worth over £5,000. For a chance to win £60,000 in tax-free cash and a real gold bar, text GOLD to 63225. One entry costs £2.50 plus one standard network rate message, or text BONUS to 63225. 5 entries cost £5 plus one standard network rate message. Go to gbnews.com/win. Entry start at £2.50. Call 0903 686 3232. Calls cost £2.50 plus your network access charge. Or post your name and number to GB22 PO Box 8690 Derby DE1 9TT. UK only. Entrance must be 18 or over. Lines close at 4 p.m. on the 21st of August. This is a network giveaway. Entries will be pooled. Please check the closing time if listening or watching on demand.
Some people enjoy lazy Sunday mornings, but not me.
What's the truth of the matter?
So that's a very live question.
Would you support him if he waters down these plans?
Before the spin sets in, I'll be getting to the truth.
This is personal.
No soft questions, no easy answers.
It's one thing if the state has rules in this country. It's another thing whether the police and others actually police them.
Setting the agenda and holding those in power to account.
You can't really blame her if the system is set up this way. You will not want to miss it, trust me.
The Camilla Tominey Show, Sundays from 9:30, only on GB News.
Exciting news. Every Friday, my Patrick Christie's Tonight Show is going to have a twist to it. We're welcoming some special guests. You. That's right, on Fridays I'm going to be doing my show in front of a live studio audience, because this show is about you and what you have to say. It's going to be the same big debates, same big topics, same big opinions, but every Friday night at 9 p.m. you are invited to come on down to Patrick Christie's Tonight to be a part of the action. Only on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel. As soon as it hits 11 and the headlines come in,
Late Edition brings you the breaking news from all the front pages.
Because the news is going to happen.
So get a head start today.
Patrick Christie's Tonight, Late Edition.
Alex Armstrong Tonight, Late Edition. From 11 o'clock every night.
Only on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
From court mornings
to warm family brunches.
From football to tennis in the car.
In the kitchen.
GB News Breakfast is there. With the stories you need and the conversations that matter.
Anyway, let's talk business.
Well, it has been a historic night in British politics.
It's astonishing, isn't it?
We're here again. To start your day just right. GB News Breakfast.
every morning from 6 a.m.
Only on GB News.
Britain's news channel.
Hello, good evening. It's me, Jacob Rees-Mogg, on State of the Nation. Tonight, is Andy Burnham going to fund his spending spree by taxing the dead? The Prime Minister has refused to rule out a death tax on all estates to fund social care. As with all socialist policies, eventually he will run out of other people's money. Also tonight.
What the honourable member is saying is that he would rather the poor were poorer, provided the rich were less rich.
The millionaire exodus continues as Britain's millionaire population has fallen to its lowest level since 2008 financial crash, which a new report says is down to tax changes and falling property prices, says the government's socialist agenda driving wealth out of Britain. Plus,
for decades, politicians told young people that desk jobs were the future. I'm making it easier for young people to get the skills they need to get into good jobs.
Has Andy Burnham just torn up Tony Blair's education legacy? The Prime Minister says too many young people were pushed towards university paths rather than technical skills, and is now promising to rectify this. Is it the key to tackling youth unemployment and productivity? And clickety-click is the world's greatest sport being plagued by a cheating scandal. Footage has gone viral of a fielder apparently clicking his fingers to trick the umpire. Is it time for the cheaters to be bowled out? State of the Nation starts now. I'll also be joined by my most pugnacious panel, the former editor of The Sun, Kelvin Mackenzie, and the journalist and broadcaster, Michael Crick. As always, let me know what you think, mailmog@gbnews.com. But now, it's your favourite time of the day. It's the News Bulletin with Sophia Wensler.
Jacob, thank you and good evening. Your headlines at 2 minutes past 8. Rescue efforts are continuing into the night in Japan after a 7.1 magnitude earthquake hit Kumamoto, with people missing in collapsed shopping malls. Video shared online shows people evacuating the area surrounded by smoke and dust. Japanese officials are reporting multiple deaths and injuries, power cuts, ruptured roads, but they are still assessing the full scale of the damage. President Donald Trump is attending the funeral for US Senator Lindsey Graham in Washington, alongside Volodymyr Zelensky and Benjamin Netanyahu, who he met with earlier in the day. The Israeli Prime Minister arrived at the White House to meet the US President in their first face-to-face meeting since the Iran war began. It came moments after the Ukrainian president left the White House, saying he had had a good meeting with Donald Trump where they discussed air defences. Andy Burnham will give parents on benefits £4,500 a year if their children become apprentices. The government has announced a new handout targeted at families on universal credit in a bid to remove welfare systems' disincentive to work. Currently, parents can claim universal credit payments for their children up to the age of 18, but those handouts are withdrawn if they take up apprenticeships, causing families to lose almost £100 a week. The new plan would change that. Firefighters are racing to control major wildfires near Bordeaux and Madrid as another intense heatwave threatens to make the crisis worse. More than 300,000 people have been evacuated across France and Spain in recent days. In southwest France, crews west of Bordeaux say the fire has stabilised, but it's still not under control. In Spain, crews are also battling major fires near Madrid, where temperatures are expected to climb to 39 degrees. Chris Philp has accused the French military of intimidation after one of its ships opened fire near him while he was filming in the Channel.
Mean that anyone who did cross the Channel and arrive in Dover could be immediately deported within around about a week.
Give that a second, it's just dragging a line by the look of it.
Is that a warning shot towards us? I don't know.
Well, I was trying to work.
The French Coast Guard says the patrol boat was taking part in a training exercise and that the incident was unrelated to the presence of the British boat. But the Shadow Home Secretary Chris Philps says he will raise the incident with the French ambassador.
Fired those 17 shots at the closest point of approach with us. They didn't shoot them beforehand or afterwards. They shot them when they were very close to our boat. And I can only imagine it was done to intimidate us.
Meanwhile, government sources have told GBNews that the French have said it was a standard exercise and it was a coincidence that Chris Philps' boat was in the vicinity. 4 women who were given the wrong ashes for their unborn babies by a fraudulent funeral director tearfully told a court how he had exploited them at their lowest moments. Robert Bush, who owned Legacy Independent Funeral Directors in Hull, has admitted 67 offences. Police found 35 bodies and more than 100 sets of ashes during a raid last year. The so-called speedboat killer Jack Shepherd has today admitted to attacking his girlfriend with barbecue tongs. The 38-year-old pleaded guilty to 2 counts of assault, occasioning actual bodily harm as well as damaging property. The assaults happened in February and June of last year, resulting in Shepherd's recall to prison. He was originally jailed for 10 years for manslaughter back in 2018 over the death of 24-year-old Charlotte Brown when his speedboat crashed during their first date. The president of FIFA, Gianni Infantino, is plotting a World Cup sell-off to private investors. European football's governing body UEFA has reacted furiously, insisting the World Cup is not an asset to trade. The plan, announced 9 days after the World Cup, could result in a group of investors controlling the commercial interests of FIFA's top men's and women's competitions. It's reported UEFA is already considering its legal options as European football prepares to go head-to-head with football's world governing body. Those are the latest GB News headlines. Now it's back to Jacob.
Tune into GB News Radio wherever you are. Online, on DAB digital radio, on TuneIn, on Radio Player, on Nation Player and on your smart speaker. Just say, play GB News.
Welcome back to State of the Nation. Well, there's one thing you can't avoid. It's death and taxes. And this government apparently wants to make the two coincide. So that as the funeral cortege is going down the street, it's coming to the churchyard. There follows the man from HMRC to take his share, to take 10% to pay supposedly for social care. But people are already very heavily taxed. We are at the maximum level of taxation this country ever seems willing to pay. That is to say, 38% of GDP. Whether tax rates have been 98% or they've been 40% at the highest level, 38% has been a ceiling. Whether you've had hard left Labour governments or Thatcherite Conservative ones, it's still the 38% level. So it's very unlikely that new taxes will raise in total more money. They will just shift the areas from which it comes. But isn't this a particularly cruel tax? Because many people have small savings, and not just married people who can pass it freely from husband to wife, but siblings who live together, who find that then the family home that the siblings have lived in has to be sold, or dependent children who have been caring for them now to be hit with a 10% tax, even if they don't have great wealth. This isn't death duties on larger estates, though the freezing of the thresholds has brought more and more estates into death duties. This is supposedly going to hit everybody. But how does this affect incentives? Doesn't it just mean that people will want to spend all their money to get rid of it, to pass it through during their lifetime, so it's not there for the rapacious hand of the taxman to whip it out of their coffin? That it seems to me to be the wrong approach and desperately unfair on anyone now in care who has paid for his or her care out of their own estate, out of the money they've worked hard to save, and will now find on death that another 10% is taken. Of course we need a solution to social care. We need to try and help people, and we need to work out how incentives are right so that people who have saved and done good things with their lives don't find that they are enormously penalised against those who have browsed and sluiced their way through the decades. But to do it with a death tax cannot be fair or right. We are taxed enough. We are, in fact, taxed too much. Say no to higher taxation. As always, let me know what you think. Mailmog at gbnews.com. But now, my most pugnacious pal is with me, Kelvin Mackenzie and Michael Crick. Michael, taxation is already very high. Putting a 10% tax on low-value estates just can't be a good idea.
Well, we have to do something, as you've acknowledged in your monologue, or monologue, or whatever it's called. And the trouble we've had is that politicians like you and your opposite numbers denounce the other side when they try and come up with a proposal. You know, it's either referred to as a death tax or a dementia tax. I can't remember which way round it is. But Andy Burnham tried to do it in 2009 when he was Health Secretary. Theresa May tried to do it right slap bang in the middle of the general election in 2017. And that was almost the end of her. But it was, well, it's certainly the end of the Conservative hopes of getting a majority again. And but we've got to work out a solution to this. And you've given us an example of all the unfairnesses that may arise from a tax on estates. But there are terrible injustices right now in that, you know, people who get dementia, their families are faced with huge bills for social care. I mean, the minimum you'll probably get away with now is about £1,500 a week. That's £75,000, £80,000 a year. And yet, you know, I might get dementia and Kelvin might not, or it's the other way round. And so Kelvin's family is you know, they're fine, his descendants, and mine aren't, or the other way around. So this is a way of equalising the burden.
I'm in favour. I am totally in favour of people who have the money. They should pay it out of their pocket. I am not in favour of actually then subsidising everybody else who is already covered by the 24,000, right? So if they have less than £24,000, then their fees are picked up by the state, effectively, or the council, whichever one it is, right? Over and above that, if we're now going to get remember what he has said is that it's going to be like the NHS, right? Anybody, right? So people like me, for instance, I've had a bit of luck in life, okay? I will get the benefit of it. It won't harm me. I fully expect if I am not well, then I am going to have to pay out 75, 100,000 a year. And by the way, who's going to suffer? It's going to be my kids. I honestly love them madly. I couldn't care less. They can get on with it. I just object to another 20 billion being sucked out of our country.
Well, in that case, neither of you, you know, you were just going to have to carry on with what we have now, and the system will be a mess.
The Tories had a good idea.
It will be grossly unfair. And what would be sensible is if we could, if this is an issue where if the parties could sit down, they could work something out. Although I suspect reform would reject whatever was decided.
Well, reform's been pushed to one side, as often happens.
But the three, you know, and there have been occasions where two parties have got along with something, but not the third one. This does have to be resolved. It does provide huge problems, and increasingly, as people live longer, and increasingly, the chances of dying of dementia rather than other things is growing because medicine is dealing with it.
It's 1 in 7 who are likely to have this problem.
Yeah.
And I think there are things you can do short of picking up the whole bill by the state. But if you do pick up the bill, you should take it out of other things. Because it seems to me that if you're going to start saying you take on this another 20 billion, we've already got over 200 billion in the NHS, that is unaffordable. If you were to say, actually, we're going to charge people for things they can pay for, we're going to put up prescription charges for people once until they're 70 rather than at 60. There are things you can do that allow you to perhaps look after a few more people and perhaps put the 23,500 up to 50,000 or 100,000, or offer the cost of care from pre-tax income, because if somebody is getting a large income or having to sell assets to pay for their care, then they get clobbered by capital gains tax and they get clobbered by income tax to do it. It seems to me those sorts of things could be done, which leaves the primary responsibility on individuals who have, of course, saved for their old age. That's why people save. They wanted to go to their children if possible. But their main priority is to save to look after themselves in their old age.
Well, that is good. That's excellent. You're coming up with alternatives. And if we can have a real proper debate in this country where people come up with different ideas and we may end up with having to do a combination of them. But what I hate is the way in which things are denounced, you know, in a tabloid way. Sorry, Kelvin.
I like the tabloids.
As dementia taxes and death taxes. You saw it on the front page of the Mail today.
There is no new taxability in this country. We're already too highly taxed.
Well, taxability is the same as affordability, really. I mean, OK, people may be at the limit of what they can pay in tax, but if you're charging them in other ways, like introducing prescription charges for people from 65 to 70, that's a tax as well. So a lot of these solutions are just new taxes.
You've always got to pay for things one way or another. And the question is, do you pay for things in a way that people can afford by modest charges on little things, or do you do it on the big issue, which is
what do you think of the Tory idea of, I think they're moving up to 85,000 from 24, so that people must understand that their health is at least as important as their time down the pub, in the betting shop, or going on holidays, right? It's something they've got to work towards. And if they haven't got the money, then they're not going to have to pay. And I can't understand what is it about Burnham, what is it about his background that says, whenever I have an idea, I'm going to get somebody I've never met and I don't really like to foot the bill for it.
Well, this is a slight worry of mine, that Burnham is coming out with lots of announcements at the moment. We're going to discuss another one in a moment. And these are complex issues that require detailed policies. And here he's saying, I'm sorting it out tomorrow. It just isn't true that to get a good policy on social care is going to take an enormous amount of thought, legislative time, then implementation. We are years away from that. And he's making it sound as if it's all going to be solved in speed.
Is he actually, what is he really planning to actually now, I'm going to enact this in the summer of 2029, i.e. make that another part of his, you know, on top of we're going to rejoin the EU and various other rather potty ideas.
Does it all become an election thing?
Yeah.
Well, I don't know, but I agree with you that Burnham is coming up with idea after idea, which they all sound wonderful, but they're all totally uncosted. And the detail of what's actually going to happen is, you know, there is no detail. And this, of course, is the problem we've had through a new Prime Minister who's had no chance to consult colleagues, to consult think tanks. He's put very little thought into what he wants to do as Prime Minister. And that was a huge mistake for Keir Starmer, as Morgan McSweeney has recently admitted. And it's even worse here.
Starmer is the most culpable because he had time in opposition to work it out.
And it was all devoted to winning the election.
I saw this firsthand with a number of Tory Prime Ministers, and it is difficult when you come into office. But David Cameron had thought some things through, and that, I think, is Starmer's greatest failure. Anyway, on that note, we're going to have to move on, because next we're going to be talking about my favourite song, Who Wants to Be a Millionaire? I Do. The millionaire exodus continues as Britain's millionaire population has fallen to its lowest level since the 2008 financial crash. A new report says tax changes and falling property prices are causing this to go down, so the government's socialist agenda is driving wealth out of Britain, we think.
Britain deserves a newsroom that puts the facts and your voice first.
Well, and that's what you get on GB News. Lively debates, lively conversation.
And we're not afraid to hold power to account.
And each other. So join me, Andrew Pierce.
And me, Miriam Gates, for Britain's Newsroom, weekdays from 9:30 on GB News.
Bold. They are under no illusion. Ray, are you a human trafficker? Boundless. I've had enough of the nonsense, and I'm not afraid to say it. Don't get this on the BBC. Every weeknight, I tear through the headlines. The smell of gasoline. Should we be worried about it? From Westminster madness to cultural war chaos. What we're going to do now, they are throwing things out the car as we speak. Get ready, Britain. Here we go. Patrick Christie's tonight, weeknights from 9 p.m, only on GB News, Britain's news channel.
Here at GB News, we made a promise to tell your stories. And on the 6th of August, we're marking 5 years of doing exactly that.
Celebrate with us by having your say. Join in the debates live on TV and radio.
And meeting your favourite presenters across the country, from Leeds to Aberdeen, from Belfast to Barry Island.
Plus, join me in Essex for our biggest live show of the year. Scan the QR code or visit gbnews.com/celebrate. Terms and conditions apply.
Join me, Nana Akwe, for an informative, interactive news programme with a difference. It's fun.
No, he didn't say that, Dave.
I'm so surprised.
I think there's an element of truth to that.
Join me from 3 p.m. every weekend, only on GB News, Britain's news channel.
5 hosts,
5 opinions, 5 fearless debates,
5 unfiltered takes on the day's news.
5 reasons not to be anywhere else on Saturday night.
This is the Saturday 5.
You got me good there. Britain's biggest Saturday night TV show.
It's not a bad brand.
Yeah.
uncensored.
Very, very racy tonight.
On the unpredictable.
What did she say? Can you translate it for us?
And always entertaining.
And how can a country go from being led by William Wallace
Saturday nights from 6 p.m. only on GB News, the People's Channel.
Britain's news channel.
You're going to want to stay tuned, trust me.
Breaking news, live updates, stories that matter.
From the heart of the GB newsroom to every corner of Britain, with our team of dedicated journalists across the UK.
GB News bulletins are there to deliver the latest news that matters to you.
Bulletins on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
At GB News, we love to hear from you, our loyal community. So drop us a line at gbnews.com/yoursay. There you can talk to each other and also to the presenters live on air. gbnews.com/yoursay, because GB News is your channel, Britain's news channel.
Well, the mail mogs have come in on the death tax. Julie says, having worked my whole life and managed to buy a modest home, £200,000, for me, the death tax is likely to come in cheaper than paying for a care home. And Janet says, this tax for care will not cover accommodation, food, etc., which are the largest parts of care cost. This is unfair, as not all parts of society will pay. I strongly disagree with 10% of any estate. So, Britain's level since the financial crash in 2008. A new report from the highly regarded Adam Smith Institute has found there are now 442,000 people with net wealth of more than £1 million, a drop of 7% in 1 year. Reasons cited include falling property prices and recent tax changes, including reforms to the non-dom regime, making it harder for rich people to stay in Britain. The think tank is warning that speculation about a future wealth tax could drive even more of them abroad. The government argues its tax reforms are fair and designed to strengthen the public finances, and that those with the broadest shoulders should bear the largest burden. Is this another example of the socialist experiment driving wealth away and harming all levels of society? And I'm joined now by the research associate at the Adam Smith Institute, James Hodgkinson. James, thank you very much for coming in. How much of this is property market decline, and how much is it of people fleeing the country?
Well, look, it's quite clear that there are a number of factors at play here. So you have property market decline, and you've also got a decline in household savings and investments. But the real driver here is people leaving the country. We at the ASI in 2024 warned that we were on track to lose 20% of our millionaires. That now seems pretty optimistic. Where we are now, we're in a situation where if you are wealthy, there is almost no motivation for you to stay in Britain. And ultimately, we're going to see this exodus continue for as long as regulations persist.
Is it worse than the headline implies? Because if you've got a £1 million house in the home counties, you're not actually going anywhere. But if you've got 20, 30, 40 million pounds in more liquid assets, you're much more likely to be moving. So there's a concentration on the higher end of the millionaires rather than the lower end.
Absolutely. And If you look at the OBR's report, for example, from the non-dom reforms, they themselves acknowledge that it is a disproportionate number of the very richest people who will leave. Their wealth is the most mobile. They are most able to go and put that money into another country that actually welcomes them. And this is the problem. It's the ordinary Brits sat at home who might have, as you say, a £700,000, £800,000 house, but have very few more assets than that, who will suffer the tax burden from this.
And what is the effect economically if these people leave? Well, they've gone off somewhere else, but they weren't contributing to the tax base. They were living off the fat of the land, living off the British taxpayer. Do we really miss them?
Well, look, when we investigated the non-dom situation, we found that the cost to the British economy in overall terms will be £111 billion over a decade. And that's because these people, the people who are most likely to leave, are Britain's wealth creators. They are the people who make the jobs, who go out, who consume, who spend. And so you take them away, you lose a really, really vital part of any dynamic economy. The other thing to mention is the fact that for every millionaire who leaves, it takes the tax contributions of 49 average taxpayers to replace them. So all this means is as the government shrinks its tax base, ordinary people sat at home are going to be getting a knock at the door and they're going to be asked to pay more, because as this continues, the situation becomes worse. The more who leave, the worse it gets. It's a ratchet effect.
And do you think it will continue, or that we've now seen the effect of it and that the non-doms who have stayed, have effectively become doms, are now going to stay here because they've changed their circumstances?
I don't think so. I think when you look right across our economy, we have far greater levels of regulation than we had 2 years ago. If you look at taxation, we've seen business rates go up. We've seen national insurance go up. We've seen the minimum wage rise. There are no reasons, if you are young, if you are ambitious, if you're highly motivated, that you'd want to start a business here, when countries like Italy, countries in the Middle East and in the Far East are actively courting your wealth.
But how far is it that this wealth is fairly taxed and needs to be fairly taxed to provide the services that people need? That if you have a system where non-doms do frightfully well, doesn't everybody try and organise their affairs to minimise taxation?
Well, it's a valid concern, and it's important that public services receive the funding that they need. But the thing to remember here is that the top 1% of earners pay 29% of income tax in this country. So the wealthy already do a really good job of propping up a lot of the state infrastructure that we use. The problem you get is if you start to push that too far, these people will leave. And as I say, when that happens, it's people lower down the income scale who bear the consequences.
And do they leave once policies are announced, or do they, as I'm worried about at the moment, leave when you've got a budget in October, a new chancellor, lots of kites being flown about new taxes? Do they leave preemptively?
Well, I think, to be honest, it's a bit of both. Certainly what you see is uncertainty damages an economy. If you look at, for example, Andy Burnham's minister's response to the Patriotic Millionaires letter, it was conspicuous in its silence. In effect, what was said is, we welcome this move, wait to the budget. So for all the people who have wealth, who are remaining in this country for now, they'll have a decision to make. Do they get out before the budget? Do they wait to see what the budget does?
Because there have been talks about an exit tax. And if you're watching this programme and you're a non-dom who's still here, how worried would you be about an exit tax?
Well, I think it's a real concern. Certainly for me, the idea that you would tax all wealth leaving the country that someone has earned through their graft, through their labour, seems to me completely unfair and immoral. But we've got to bear in mind that we're dealing with a government that's making an awful lot of commitments at the moment, and it's got to show the British public at some point how it's going to pay for that.
Yes, and the issue then is effectively of global taxation. Are we, sympathisers of the Adam Smith Institute, people like me, not good at making the argument for why the non-doms shouldn't be taxed? Don't they just look like fat cats who have got the cream and we ought to take a bit of the cream off them? But in fact, a lot of them have made all their money in foreign countries and just happen to be living here. And they owe, if they owe tax at all, it to their home country, not to this country.
Well, yes, exactly. And the other thing that I always have to reinforce to people is the fact that Britain is not the booming economy it once was. Growth has languished at 1% for the last couple of years. And put simply, London is not Milan or Monte Carlo. And if we want to carry on getting these people
Yes,
in...
but nobody in their right mind would want to live in Milan or Monte Carlo. They can't get to Somerset in 2.5 hours. Anyway, thank you very much for joining me. A spokesman for His Majesty's government said the government backs innovation and the Chancellor has made wealth creation one of his top priorities. The UK remains an attractive destination for talent and investment with a competitive and stable tax system, the strongest growth in the G7 so far this year, deep capital markets, world-class universities and a highly skilled workforce. Well, thank you very much to them for that. So what have we got next? Wait and see.
For decades, politicians told young people that desk jobs were the future. I'm making it easier for young people to get the skills they need to get into good jobs.
Has Andy Burnham just torn up Tony Blair's education legacy? The Prime Minister says too many young people were pushed towards university paths rather than technical skills and is now promising to rectify it. Is this the key to tackling youth unemployment and productivity?
Dinner under the stars tonight?
That reminds me of our travel insurance.
You mean all clear skies?
All Clear Travel Insurance sponsors GB News Travel Destinations Forecast.
Hello there, you're heading away for the summer holidays. Well, it's turning very hot across parts of France and Spain. High pressure dominates across Europe, bringing plenty of dry weather. Very warm across the Canary Islands as well as towards Madeira. Coastal areas of Portugal and Spain will be cooler, and temperatures in the high 20s, low 30s. Towards Italy, though, as well as Greece, very hot indeed. There is a risk of thunderstorms as well across the Alps, but it does remain fine, dry and warm into the weekend as well.
All Clear Travel Insurance sponsors GB News Travel Destinations Forecast.
Hello there, good evening. Welcome to your GB News weather update from the Met Office. Into tomorrow, we'll feel slightly cooler under cloudier skies. Otherwise, in the sunshine, it's a hotter day ahead. A brief hot spell this time, though, gradually turning cooler towards the end of the week. And for this evening, we've still got a north-south split in the weather. Low pressure dominating northern areas, but high pressure holding on to the south. So mostly dry with clear skies for much of England and Wales. But the low pressure still continues to bring in more cloud and some spells of rain across much of Scotland and at times Northern Ireland and northwest England. For although it is set to be a very warm, if not quite muggy night across parts of the south, where temperatures aren't going to drop much past between 17 to 19 degrees, so a little bit uncomfortable for sleeping in through this evening. Then on Wednesday, there will be some spells of rain to start, this turning heavy as it crosses over hills, but a little bit brighter towards the far north of Scotland, though still some showers pushing through. Still some rain affecting parts of Northern Ireland, southern Scotland and northwest England, and perhaps a bit more cloud around Wales to start compared to recent mornings. But otherwise, you can see it's a very warm and bright start across much of England and Wales, and temperatures are going to be pushing up through the course of the day, a hotter day into tomorrow compared to what we've seen this afternoon. And there'll still be a fair amount of cloud, this thick enough to produce some spells of rain still across much of the northwest and turning a little heavy at times. But for most, particularly across central and southern England and Wales, intense sunshine, high UV levels and temperatures pushing up into the mid-30s, so a very hot day here. On Thursday, though, the temperatures will start to come down. There will be some cloud and perhaps the odd shower, very hit and miss across England and Wales. Longer spells of at times quite heavy rain pushing into Northern Ireland and parts of Scotland. So we remain in that north-south split, and we remain that way for the rest of the week. Temperatures will be coming down though, but still feeling warm in the sunshine.
From court mornings
to warm family brunches,
from football to tennis, in the car,
in the kitchen,
GB News Breakfast is there with the stories you need and the conversations that matter.
Anyway, let's talk business.
Well, it has been a historic night in British politics.
It's astonishing, isn't it?
We're here again
to start your day just right. GB News Breakfast.
Every morning from 6 a.m.
Only on GB News.
Britain's news channel.
Britain is not just a geographical expression. We are a people bound together by history and culture that are distinctively British. Join me to celebrate our music, theatre, artworks and literature, which we can explore and enjoy together.
Everybody's welcome.
Sunday with Michael Portillo. Every Sunday at 11 a.m. on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Is the heir to Blair turning the Blair legacy into hot air? Andy Burnham has announced what he calls the biggest overhaul of technical education in a generation, saying the drive by Sir Tony Blair and later David Cameron to get half of young people into university has let down many school leavers.
The evidence is where countries have an education system based on that principle of parity, Germany or the Netherlands, they have far fewer young people who end up not in education, employment or training. And I think it's long overdue that Britain makes this change, and in England particularly, we build an education system that has a path at 14 for all young people, and we strengthen that offer on technical education.
Under the preliminary plans, vocational qualifications would be put on equal footing with academic study, with new technical pathways from the age of 14 introduced in schools. Is this the right thing to tackle youth unemployment and increase national productivity? Well, my panel is still with me, Kelvin McKenzie and Michael Crick. Kelvin, everyone is in favour of this. This country has been talking about it since the beginning of the 19th century.
Yeah.
We passed the 1889 Technical Education Act and the 1944 Education Act, all of which were meant to do this. And so it's not disagreeing with Burnham's objective, it's just the glib approach that he comes out and points out something that's completely obvious to everybody, but he has absolutely no plan for how to do it.
No, but it is a direction of travel from a Prime Minister, and I'm pleased to hear it. Not least of all because when many of the students are going to leave university now, AI are going to do the kinds of jobs which they would be first inclined to have done. So, actually, we have to change. And it doesn't mean that there won't be very, very clever people going into very important academic areas and coming out more brilliant than they went in. But that isn't the media, it isn't English literature, it isn't English language, it may not even be history. I say that universities should simply be job creation platforms. And what happened was that we ended up with it being actually ex-got at first in English, and that was considered a good thing, but there are no jobs for that. We now are going to have technology abilities of which mean that we don't need a lot of these people. So you're going to have to be trained in something. And if it's going to be a bricklayer, carpenter, fantastic. Anybody who's got for instance, I've just moved house and we've had all kinds of things done to our new house. Oh, my God, don't worry about who the kings of the road are these days, right? These are people that can operate all the tech inside a house. They can do stuff that you couldn't even think about doing. But honestly, the moment has passed for universities in the old tradition. We're still going to need fantastic people teaching you, but you're going to have less of them.
Do we need to go back to the old polytechnics? Is that really the argument?
Possibly, or, you know, in the 1950s, they started what were called technical schools. My father taught in one of them. That was his first teaching job. And what's happened to them? I mean, the detail, as you say, Jacob, is totally lacking here. I mean, for instance, are we proposing then that in the same school they will reduce the number of, say, arts teachers, people teaching history and geography and languages, and bring in people who teach bricklaying and computer stuff and high-tech and all of that? Or are we talking about different schools altogether? I mean, it seems to me that the latter is maybe the more efficient way of doing it. And if you're going to sort of say, well, half the school is going to lose their jobs and we're going to have to... That's going to cause huge disruption. Then what happens in the universities? If we're saying, right, well, universities matter a lot less, then it seems to me large numbers of universities are going to have to close.
Close, yes.
How you close...
It's already happening, though.
I was on the board of a university that hasn't closed down, but which had to merge because of its financial problems with a neighbouring one. And the difficulty of closing down a university, if you think about it, what do you do with all the students? Do you suddenly say, sorry, this course is finished, you're going to have to go home?
I mean, I'm afraid that's what's been happening to private schools because of Bridget Watsit's brutal attack on them.
Yes, in private schools, the numbers
are smaller,
yeah,
but still
a university may have 30,000 people. No other unit, you know, you can't just sort of say, right, well, you all go to the university next door, or their courses may not be quite the same. And what happens to the fact that they've had, may have had grants, or also there are complications involved in all of this. And of course, the universities are suffering have been suffering financial problems now for 10 years because the fees didn't go up with inflation. They've had to become much more reliant on foreign students. Now foreign students a lot of that's dried up. There are all sorts of implications to this that Burnham doesn't appear to have thought through. And now we have the Education Secretary, by the way, saying that she wants to do something about the loan system.
But she also doesn't want people to do spelling tests because she thinks they're too difficult. I mean, that's really dreadful undermining of academic excellence, because I think whatever we do, we still need academic excellence. We are going to need the people who develop the AI companies.
I absolutely buy that, but that number is going to shrink. That number is going to shrink for a very good reason. I don't know whether you guys ever use Chat or Claude or anything. It is beyond unbelievable, right? It's going to be a massive asset to sole traders, to small companies. It's going to make you as big as Unilever, big as Shell. It's fantastic. But for the big companies, I'm afraid it's the other way up. They're not going to need middle management, and they're not going to need these people who came in at 22 and because what happens now is that instead of them sitting there going through all the numbers like that, you just go like that and boom, up it comes. And I disagreed with the guy who ran one of the big farmers. He said that the jobs, it's not going to cut a lot of jobs, certainly not in my company. Honestly, he's obviously not looking at what banks and insurance companies, and not only those companies, building companies, for instance, are going to change the way that they do everything. So we have to change. And you ask the kids coming out of university today, they're at the battle. They're at the front of all this. They're looking for work. And mysteriously, for the first time, the jobs just aren't there. Right? Now, I could blame Labour. For instance, 75,000 Saturday jobs have disappeared in the 2 years that they've been in power. But actually, it's way beyond Labour. It's way beyond Labour. We're watching a global revolution going on. And actually, places like Asia that don't have this welfare, don't have this subsidised state that we all lord over under our Liverpool friend here. And we are going to be challenged. So there may be 1 million NEETs right now. That number will be moving up. We have to change.
I'd make another point, and that is that that universities are actually great contributors to the economy and growth. And Burnham goes on about how the high growth rate of Manchester compared with the rest of the country. Well, I think one of the reasons for that is Manchester has 5 universities. OK, they're not all big.
Well, but it was also a huge building boom financed by the private sector.
That as well. But you've seen around the world how clusters of universities or university activity can generate all sorts of spin-offs and start-ups in that area. And you've seen that in Silicon Valley. You've seen that around Oxford and Cambridge. And if you can actually encourage universities in the areas where they haven't got them, that might contribute to growth. The danger is you will be closing down universities, and not just closing down courses, arts courses and courses, sociology courses that don't have any apparent benefit to the economy. You end up closing down those things that do. And as we're seeing with this proposal to close down Jodrell Bank in Manchester.
Which seems a great pity. But there we go. Anyway, coming up in just a moment, is the world's greatest sport being plagued by a cheating scandal? Footage has gone viral of a fielder apparently clicking his fingers to fool the umpire. Is it time for the cheaters to be bowled out?
Nana Queer, weekends from 3 p.m.
This is really exciting. We've got 1 million people living with dementia in this country, and about 65%, 70% of them have Alzheimer's disease. This is a condition where a protein called amyloid beta builds up in plaques within the brain and interferes with the connection of nerve cells. It's a cruel disease, as I know you're aware. It robs families of the relative that they once loved, the personality that they knew, and it's the leading cause of death in this country. So, numbers are only increasing as the ageing population grows. But here we have in phase 3 clinical trials, which is the last stage of trials before a regulatory body approves it for use, which appears to clear some of these plaques within a few weeks. Now, that's really exciting.
GB News, the People's Channel. Britain's newsroom, weekday mornings from 9:30.
What does this kind of day mean to you, kind of coming and doing this every year?
Well, I feel that I'm doing this for my wife because she used to sell poppies properly, really, and I used to help her for 20-odd years. And I feel like I'm doing it for her, really. But it is nice to think that everybody appreciate what we did for being in the forces.
But tell me about your service, because you got sent out to the Far East, didn't you?
Yes. I just got engaged because I didn't think I was going to get called up, but then I did.
In your jacket here, you've got one medal for national service and one for that Hong Kong medal for that.
To be honest, I was 18 years old and I was very excited about going. It was an adventure to me.
The People's Channel. Britain's newsroom. Weekday mornings from 9:30.
Weight loss jabs could help children as young as 6 who are living with obesity. When did we start saying living with obesity? Can we not say obese children? Is that not politically correct? Well, delighted to be joined now by Sarah LeBrock, Director of All About Obesity. Sarah, I think a lot of people will feel slightly uneasy about children getting on these jabs, simply because we sort of expect, I don't know, diets to be managed by parents.
Yeah, I can totally understand why people would think that. But the point we're not talking about just overweight children here. We're talking about children living with obesity. And interestingly, you say, why do we say living with obesity? It's because they're living with a chronic condition.
GB News, the People's Channel.
Here at GB News, we made a promise to tell your stories. And on the 6th of August, we're marking 5 years of doing exactly that.
Celebrate with us by having your say. Join in the debates live on TV and radio.
And meeting your favourite presenters across the country, from Leeds to Aberdeen, from Belfast to Barry Island.
Plus, join me in Essex for our biggest live show of the year. Scan the QR code or visit gbnews.com/celebrate. Terms and conditions apply.
Is the world's greatest sport being plagued by a cheating scandal? Footage from an English club cricket match has gone viral after a fielder appeared to click his fingers as the ball passed the bat, seemingly trying to fool the umpire into thinking there'd been an edge. The incident, nicknamed Clickgate or Clicky Ponting online, happened during a North Yorkshire and South Durham Cricket League match. And now the authorities have said they have launched a full investigation after a formal complaint. The clip has been viewed millions of times, with fans calling for the harshest possible punishment, saying it's just not cricket. I'm joined now by the sports journalist and broadcaster, Chris Scudder. Chris, thank you very much for joining me. So can you explain, for our non-cricketing viewers, of whom there are, I'm sorry to say, one or two, why clicking could be of any possible benefit?
It's just not cricket. It's just not click it. I mean, extraordinary stuff, really. What is supposed to be, Jacob, the last bastion of sporting fair play cricket. People around the world have got interested in this because they look at it and they go, oh, yeah, that's the game where the gentleman, after you, here's a cucumber sandwich, here's a Pimm's, and let's play the game in the spirit of fairness. And then I have to say, this is a great bit of detective work by whoever unearths this. Obviously, the game was filmed, because they do, but the guy involved, I won't name him just in case there is anything legal there, but he appears to have been caught leg before there, doesn't he, with a click of the fingers, imitating the sound of the ball edging the bat and being caught behind. And that was just the start of this investigation, because the batsmen involved in these games are saying that they never touched it, and they claim that something funny was going on. People have looked into the records of the team involved, Saltburn in the northeast and North Yorkshire, and it appears that their wicketkeeper has been taking a lot of catches this season, an awful lot of catches, a record-breaking amount of catches, and the same slip fielder has been in position. So people are putting their detective hats on and saying this just isn't cricket, and it's quite right that the league involved are making a full investigation.
It is quite a record, isn't it? That the wicketkeeper, I think, took 8 catches in one match, and the Test match record is 7, I think held by Bob Taylor, as it happens. That this is quite extraordinary. And the point of the clicking is to click just as the ball goes past the bat to make it sound as if there's an edge, so that the umpire will be fooled into giving the batsman out, especially if the ball is moving a bit off the wicket, so it looks as if there's some movement from the bat as well.
Yeah, but if you do that, it doesn't sound like a bat hitting a ball to me, but, you know, clearly it happens so quickly and everybody choreographed goes up at the same time. You assume they're all in on this because, you know, it is uncanny the amount of times it's happened. What's going to happen now? I mean, a full investigation. I understand that a certain newspaper's contacted the player involved and he says no comment, blah, blah, blah. And the league are investigating. This really should go all the way to the ECB because cricket has, despite that thing of the fair play, had its fair share of scandals in fairly recent times. You remember the spot fixing. That was completely different because it was players potentially lining their own pockets in betting scandals. But this is just all about winning. It's kind of the Australian school, if you like, of winning at all costs. We all remember the sandpaper scandal when Steve Smith was caught and burst into tears, that pitiful, tearful show of, oh, I've been caught, which they will never get over. Let us not forget that in Ashes. They will never get over that, and quite right. So this, you know, it's up there with that, I think. It might be a league game, but this isn't cricket. And the lad involved...
Dare I say we get too sentimental about cricket, that W.G. Grace was famous for his gamesmanship. Douglas Jardine was thought to cheat over bodyline. I remember as a child, Somerset, under Brian Rose, declared in a Benson and Hedges match, having scored 1 run, because under the way the system worked, it was meant to get them through to the quarter-finals. Gamesmanship has always been part of cricket, whilst we pretend that we're eating a cucumber sandwich and having our glass of Pimm's and are too polite to notice.
But Jacob, is that gamesmanship? It's just plain cheating, isn't it? Gamesmanship is somebody coming up to bowl and then bowls underarm, which is not outside the rules, but it's outside the spirit. I was at, was it Lord's? Yes, it was Lord's. That famous day a few summers ago when Alex Carey took a delivery, Johnny Bairstow left it, and then he just wandered out of his crease and he threw down the stumps, which at the time, I've never seen a reaction from a cricket crowd like it. There was a total uproar. That is not sportsmanship. And I raised it with Pat Cummins after the game, the Aussie captain. And I felt like saying to him, I wished I'd said to him, you know, was this not an opportunity for you to, given the Australia's sandpaper scandal, to make yourselves look good by saying, OK, yes, come back, we know...
I was there too, as it happens.
He didn't.
And round the crowd, not including me, went, same old Aussies always cheating, I'm sorry to say. I didn't really approve at Lord's of that happening, but there we go.
But that was sportsmanship, not cheating. This is cheating. This is properly cheating.
We're going to have to move on. I'm sorry. Thank you so much for joining me, because we've got another example of the biter bit. A cyclist who reported a driver for passing too close to him has been fined more than £1,200 after the Rozzers said his helmet camera footage showed him riding without due care and attention. Officers said he squeezed between a parked car and an oncoming vehicle, forcing the driver almost to hug the curb. So the message is, don't be a prig when you're cycling. Anyway, that's all from me. Up next, it's the one and only Patrick Christys, who is further from being a prig than anybody I know. So what is on your prig-free show this evening?
Oh, gosh, just a couple of letters away from disaster there, Jacob. Loads on. We've got a huge exclusive for you, actually. We can exclusively reveal here at GB News that illegal migrants set off from a new route in northern France, 140 miles away from their usual launch area. And it worked. They were testing the route. It worked. They've just been brought to Britain by Border Force. We've got the exclusive footage for you, and I'll play it for you in just a couple of minutes' time.
Today's outlook: cool, calm and completely horizontal. Boxed Aircon sponsors the weather on GB News.
Hello there, good evening. Welcome to your GB News weather update from the Met Office. Into tomorrow, we'll feel slightly cooler under cloudier skies. Otherwise, in the sunshine, it's a hotter day ahead. A brief hot spell this time, though, gradually turning cooler towards the end of the week. And for this evening, we've still got a north-south split in the weather. Low pressure dominating northern areas, but high pressure holding on to the south. So mostly dry with clear skies for much of England and Wales, but the low pressure still continues to bring in more cloud and some spells of rain across much of Scotland and at times Northern Ireland and northwest England. For although it is set to be a very warm, if not quite muggy night across parts of the south, where temperatures aren't going to drop much past between 17 to 19 degrees, so a little bit uncomfortable for sleeping in through this evening. Then on Wednesday, there will be some spells of rain to start, this turning heavy as it crosses over hills, but a little bit brighter towards the far north of Scotland, though still some showers pushing through. Still some rain affecting parts of Northern Ireland, southern Scotland and northwest England, and perhaps a bit more cloud around Wales to start compared to recent mornings. But otherwise, you can see it's a very warm and bright start across much of England and Wales, and temperatures are going to be pushing up through the course of the day, a hotter day into tomorrow compared to what we've seen this afternoon. And there'll still be a fair amount of cloud, this thick enough to produce some spells of rain still